Welcome to the garden. Over the past 6 months or so, I've been working on a project to set up a solar system for our house. The centerpiece in the system is a 12 kilowatt Deye Hybrid Inverter, and we have also added 3 batteries to the system and a total of 35 solar panels. You see some of them right behind me. This is my lawn garage or the garden garage. But I have more sitting on the bigger car garage. One of the challenges has been that I want the batteries and the inverter to be outside in one of the garages, and since we have cold winters here, we have had to do something about that in order to make an insulated box for the inverter and the batteries, since the batteries do not really like to be below 10 C. So we have made an insulated box and also a heating system, and I will show you some of that. So here we are behind the second garage, the bigger one, and I've added 21 panels on this roof here, which is facing directly south. And also, since I already bought them, I actually added 6 on the wall here, even though I know that they will not perform optimally with this tilt. The Deye inverter only has 2 tracker inputs, so I had to split all 35 panels into 2 series. What I ended up doing was to connect 18 in this phase here together to make up one, which is absolutely the better one. Then the second series was 3 up here, plus the 6 on the wall, and then the 8 down at the garden garage. But in the absence of more trackers, this was the solution I went with. And if I at a later point want to have more effect out of the second string, I could add a tracker more. So here we are inside the garage, the bigger one, and we have the wires coming down from some of the panels right there, and then they all go to a switch. So it's a DC switch, and you can see one for each of the 2 trackers, and then next to that there's a switch or a breaker that is for the 3-phase power coming out of the inverter going into our house. The box here is insulated all over, so it has 3 doors which can be removed for summer purpose, and also it's closed on the top. But right now the one of the lid is open because there's an actuator opening it to ventilate it. The second lid is closed over here, but for summer purpose you can open it and then simply just put the hook on here, and then it will be kept open up there. And as you can see, the hinges are such hinges that you can simply remove this little thing here and then remove the door altogether. If we open up, you can see the actuator here opening the top lid, which is good for, you could say, winter operation. There's a little electrical circuit up here that open it when it reaches around 30 degrees, and the measurement is happening right on top of the inverter here. So we are using the whole body of the inverter to keep the measurement stable, so it don't open and closes all the time. I can monitor the opening and closing by my Ajax system. So there's a little switch here you can see, and then next to it you can see there's a fire alarm also included in our setup. Furthermore, for winter operation we have a radiator sitting here. It's set for 9C, and it draws power directly from the inverter, so it's taking its power from the load out here. I'm monitoring the inverter by a Raspberry Pi, maybe you call it Raspberry Pi. It is here, and it should be organized a little better, but right now it is here, and it's connected to our Wi-Fi system. It's connecting to our internet here via a cable wire that goes all the way to the house. Also for summer purpose, I have added a fan. Maybe you can see it below here or inside. This fan will force extra air up behind the inverter, since it is a little cramped. Even though we can remove this one and we can remove the two doors, it will still be a little cramped, so I have added that to force extra air through. We can open the next door, and here we have the batteries. We have three 8.8 kilowatt batteries coupled in parallel. They're 48 volts, all of them. And you can see I have connected them, the communication here. Whoops, down here and down here. And then it goes into the inverter over here. This gray one here is connected to the smart meter, which is inside the house. I have used 70 square millimeter power cables for the DC going into the inverter. And the terminals I have crimped on using a vise and then a round piece of metal in order to squash the cable pretty well. And it seems to be working really well as far as I can see. All of the inside of the box I have covered with a concrete type of sheet. It is 8 millimeter thick and cannot burn. It's not that it in any way can prevent a fire, but I would say a spark or anything like that that would just come out would probably cause no harm. But since we are in a wooden structure, of course, calling it fire safe is stretching it. But at least I have done what I could in order to prevent any mishaps. On a good day like today, it is actually producing very close to its maximum, even though it's only early May. So I'm looking forward to see what it's going to do in bright summer. Right now it's making around 10 kilowatts, and you can see the data here on Solar Assistant. Right now it is sending all the electricity out to the grid because the batteries are fully charged. So as of now we cannot use all the electricity ourselves, but of course in the event that we later get a electric vehicle, it will be another story. We had to do a bit of digging in order to make all this. So you can see here the trench that goes from the garden garage all the way up here. And behind here, then we got into the bigger garage here through the foundation in that concrete spot right there. And here we have all the cables coming into the garage, and then just following over here and through the pile of wood, and then entering into the room behind where the inverter is. In order to connect the solar system to our house, we also had to change the whole electric setup here. It was somewhat old, looked a little like this on the right side, but we have changed the whole thing, and now we have also room for further expansion. The solar system is this piece up here, where we first of all have a transient security, so in order if there's a lightning or something hitting, this will go off and put it to the ground. Then there's a switch, like a fuse, and then there is a RDCB in order to connect it to the system. We have the meter down here, and right in front of the meter we have the smart meter sitting. You can see it sitting and flashing. There's a little telephone, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. But it tells you that it has communication. And then there's a second transient security here that will protect the installation also from lightning and other things happening at that end. Then we have prepared it for a heat pump here. This part is not active, but it will show up in a later video because we are going to install a heat pump as well. In order to get the power into the house, the trench also has a connection here that goes into the wall here. This is where we get the 3-phase power in. So this is from the inside. And you can see that 3 cables are coming out, and that is the internet, the RS485 for the smart meter, and then the 3-phase cable connecting to the installation. We are considering putting up solar panels to generate some energy, but since we have a thatched roof on our main house, that's not doable. But fortunately we have a new garage over here, where we can put it up. This side is facing more or less south, so this will be the face we will put it on. It's a 12 meter by 4 point something, and I'm also considering to put some on the wall facing south here. Another option is the garden garage that also has a roof that are facing more or less south. Yeah, so the work started out us digging some trenches in the garden to connect the different garages with the house. I had 2 really skilled workers helping me on this, and they took up the grass and then dug fairly deep into the ground in order to secure that the wiring were out of reach for later other digging that could happen in the garden. We also had to drill some holes into the foundation in order to get the wires through, and there were old wiring that we had to take care of not to damage that on the way. It ended up being a Y-shaped trench, one going to the house and from the big garage, and then a second one from the smaller garage to the bigger garage. So one would be fed with 2 DC cables from the small garage to the large garage where the inverter would be sitting, and the other one would be 3 cables, would be the 3-phase power RS385 3 connector cable and a internet cable. So we have been digging quite a bit and putting in all the cables here. So one is going down to the garage. It hosts DC cables, and this one coming that are going into the house will have the power cable and so on. After all the cables were in place, it was time to cover up and reseed the lawn and do some simple cable management inside the garages. So next up was to start to put up the fixture for the panels on the garage. It was a system we found. It had some T-shaped and some L-shaped bracket that would hold the sides of the panels, and then there were some L-shaped that would be put on the bottom to secure that they would not slide down off the roof. They have a clearance that was big enough to keep them free of those triangular pieces that are going along the roof, as you can see. So we used a string on top to place them, and then we made some wooden sticks that had the correct length to space the different holders. We also put holders on the wall, and now we got the panels, and the cables were arranged so they were use cable ties to secure them on the side, and we started on the middle to arrange the panels so they would be kind of symmetrical on the garage. The cables were running between the panels behind and kept with the cable ties. I had good help from some of the young people in the family and some of their friends. So after the top was finished, we started up on the side and realized that there was probably not easy to make it fully symmetrical, but so we slide them a bit and ended up with 6 on the side. So here you see the finished. As you can see, the ones on the wall is not fully symmetrical. Then came the next piece of the installation, the inverter, and you can see now that we have snow on the ground, so this is now winter, and it's a huge box with the hybrid inverter. I was just checking out some of the details here. You see it from the back, all the cooling elements and the fans. On the side you have some handles, and this is the opening where you can see all the connectors coming in and out, both for battery and load and so on. Probably you can't see this one, but it's just a sticker that gives some of the specification. Together with it came a dongle for Wi-Fi connection. I never used that one, and there was also some CT coils that I didn't use neither. After finishing the installation of the panels on the roof, we started to make some cabling management inside the building for all the DC cable and the AC cables that was required. The cables were fed through some pipes to make it look nice, and we put up a fuse box that would hold two DC switches, the yellow ones, and an AC switch for the power coming out of the inverter. Inside the house we also have to connect the wires coming through the foundation and then connect them to the main fuse panel that would connect the power to the house and to the grid. Next up was to make a box outside in the garage. It was an insulated box that was somewhat hanging from the beams and connected to the walls. We put insulation inside, and then we covered all the inside with some cement sheet in order to minimize the fire hazard. We did quite a bit to secure that this heavy load would not fall down, so it was supported by a stand going to the floor and also some metal bands that was connected to the beams above. This is one of the doors for the cabinet, and again they were made with plywood on the outside and then insulation and then the cement sheet on the inside. Here we have finished three of the panels here, and they were made so that they could be detached for summer use. In winter it's a closed box, but for summer it can be opened to all the sides in order to get ventilation and the temperature down. The two top was made with a lid that could slide like you can see here, and so in summer it would be up and in winter it could be down. And later we also added an actuator on the left of the two doors, so in winter operation, if temperature goes above a certain temperature, we can open it. Then we had to get the batteries up, and they were super heavy, so we made a crane that used some waste drawers to pull them up. So we had two people taking the waste drawer, and then we could lift them up and slide them in. And here we have gotten two, and I think this is the third battery that's on the way. So now we have all three batteries in place, and they have been coupled in parallel and connected to the inverter. And we made the signals go around, and we gave them an address. So each battery needs an address, and if you follow what the dip switches are, you can see that they are different, all three. We had to connect the smart meter, that was what you saw there. And also for winter operation we have added a radiator that can be set at a temperature. We have put it at 9C in order to keep a minimum of 9 centigrade inside the box. Here you see that we have connected the grid with the heavy cable going through the garden, and also we connected some to the to the load output, and that was the radiator, and also this one, which is the thermostat that I have made that can open and close the door for winter operation. Here we are trying it out, set at 28, and I think it has a little hysteresis. So 2 degrees above, then it will open the lid, and then whenever temperature is down it will close the lid again, and you will later see how it works in real life. But this was during the build phase. It's just a simple PSU cheap thermostat from the internet, and then there was a DC converter, because the PSU was 24 for the actuator, but the thermostat only needed 12 volts. So here we have it outside in the garage, and you can see that I'm trying to heat it up, and probably will start at around 30. Then it opens, and that would allow the inverter to cool down. You should envision that the room, the temperature in the room is maybe 5 degrees C or so it will cool down, and then it will close whenever that is cold again. And here we have the smart meter and some of the switches that are going in, and I had a professional electrician to change the whole fuse panel. We upgraded the whole thing, so everything was rewired, and installed the smart meter and also some surge protection. After finalizing the fuse panel, it was time to get ready and activate the solar system, and it's been quite successful. In May 23 we produced 1.8 megawatt hour on the system, so I'm quite happy with that. I hope you have enjoyed watching the video. It's been fun for me to build the system, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.